Hey y'all, how's it going? Welcome to Live in the Wellness Garden. It is me, Andreas, your site manager here, and we also got Matthew.
I'll be the cameraman today.
Yeah, unfortunately, as for those who joined last week, you may recall that our tripod broke, and we still need to order a new one, so we don't have a tripod. So we'll have to do things the old-fashioned way, if there is such a thing when it comes to recording video. But yeah, so we are going to talk about native wildflowers today and why you should plant native wildflowers in your garden. Right, but first, before we do that, we're going to give a quick tour of the garden. So have a look. Looking great. The cool season here is in full swing. All of our leafy greens are coming back vigorously. This is the walking stick kale. Really enjoying this more temperate weather. We have lettuces just loving life right now in this bed. They were kind of struggling at first before we had the leaves drop on this tree, and while it was still a bit hot, but now that they're getting a bit more sun and cooler temps, they're happy. We got dill coming up right here, and also some garlic. We're doing garlic all around the garden this year. I'm really excited to grow some garlic. Some of our tropicals are still kicking. We've got our Tithonia diversifolia, still pushing out a little bit of growth, not quite as much as it was before. Our pigeon peas are actually shooting out flowers right now. This is when they typically flower, since they are a short day plant. So they'll begin a flowering cycle early to mid-fall, then finish that up and then start another one in the spring. But I'm not sure if these are going to be productive at all. So this one is. We have plenty of pigeon peas hanging on this one, and we're going to harvest this for seed. So check it out. Rest of the garden. This roselle is hanging in there, kind of tipping over. We're trying to grow roselle here. This is what they use to make jamaica, but this one's kind of like not enjoying the cold that much. Mexican sage looking fantastic. Cassava looking really good. We might be able to harvest this in the spring. We'll see, depending on how the winter goes. Bananas still looking great. A little bit shredded from the wind, but not too bad. I think Northridge is a really great climate for growing bananas, since it doesn't get too windy here compared to some other places around the Los Angeles basin. And it is still pushing out a little bit of new growth. Not that much, but a little bit. We can't really expect much growth to happen this time of year, but once March, April rolls around, the bananas are going to wake up, and this one will definitely be on its way to producing fruit sometime next year. So really excited to get some fruit. We also got 2 pups on there. This one I am going to allow to be the daughter, because this is the mother right now. This is the daughter, and then eventually this one's going to make a granddaughter, and this one's going to fruit as well. That one I'm going to pull off for propagation. All right, so we did harvest the moringa. We left a little bit on here because I've had some students request, who have been visiting the garden, request some moringa. So you know who you are. If you're joining this live stream, come get some moringa. We saved some for you. But the rest of it we lopped off, and this is going to go to sleep for the winter as well. Huge moringa plant. And then this is where we are going to be today. We redid the pollinator boxes, and we're going to be doing all natives in them. We already put some of the narrow leaf milkweed in there. And over here we got fava beans. Love the fava beans. Looking fantastic. Broccolini, or no, rapini, sorry. It looks like it's starting to shoot out some flowers. I'm not sure. I've never grown this before, so I'm not sure if it's doing so prematurely. But it is shooting out flowers, and the plants look healthy otherwise. We got some parsley taken off. We just popped in some lettuce and some spinach in this bed the other day. It's looking really great. Germinated in the soil blocks. We got some carrots coming up right here. This is the short stubby variety. We got some more greens in this bed over here. They're kind of getting buried by the mulch right now, but kale, lettuce, spinach, and also onions. And then right here we've got one of our new additions to the garden. Camellia sinensis, aka tea. I'm really excited to grow tea. We're already doing yerba mate here, so why not grow tea itself? And here are our mushroom logs that we're propagating. Let's have a look. They're still nice and moist, and I can see we're getting some mycelium on them. I'm not sure if it's the right kind, but I'm sure on the inside we're having success with propagating our mushrooms. Yeah. Anyways. Why don't we get started? We're going to head over to this table right now. And we're going to mix up a batch of native wildflower seeds. Well, really a native microprairie mix, because it's not just going to be wildflowers, it's also going to be grasses. One species of grass, the California brome grass, 2 different varieties. One variety from Nicholas Hummingbird and one variety that I originally got from SNS Seeds that is an annual. I think I would assume Nicholas's variety is the perennial variant, but the one that I have as well, right here, this is an annual variant. So we'll be doing more annuals here than perennials since these are small pollinator boxes. And most of the perennial plants will be smaller native perennial herbs such as California fuchsia. And we're also going to sow in some showy penstemon. And I'm going to try, I think that those beds are probably too small for the bush sunflower, but the fuchsia and the showy penstemon should do pretty good. All right. So we also got leaf mold because we're going to be using that to help germinate the seeds. All right, I'm going to hand it to you. Okay, so sowing native wildflowers is super easy. They're some of the easiest plants to grow. All you got to do is take your seeds and scatter them out before the rain, basically. As long as you have like a good site. If the soil is really compacted, rough it up, they'll still grow. Maybe add a little bit of compost, a little bit of leaf mold. We're doing ours in what is essentially a potting mix in these little pollinator boxes that we got. They will grow in like a regular potting mix. They will be at their best in the ground, but you know we're kind of limited on space, and we really want to dedicate more space to our insect ecology, right? So this is where we're going to do it. What I have here is this California native wildflower mixture from Stover. This is all natives, and this is okay to grow in the Los Angeles basin. This is widely available. You can get it at Home Depot. So we have white yarrow, farewell to spring, purple innocence, so Collinsia, California poppy, globegelia, bird's eye gilia, tidy tips, golden lupine, arroyo lupine, 5-spot, baby blue eyes, California bluebells, and blue-eyed grass. These are all awesome species. And all of them can pretty much be found around the Los Angeles basin with a few exceptions. You don't really find 5-spot around here, but the rest of them, you know, are indigenous to this area. Then we have our blue dix, Dicalosoma capitatum. This is a very common native wildflower around here in the allium family. And it can be used as a source of food as well. If you want more information about that, I highly recommend taking one of Nicholas Hummingbird's classes. So we're going to be tossing that into the mix, and it's a really common perennial wildflower. Then we have Nicholas Hummingbird's California grassland mix. So this is the brome grass, California poppy, and yarrow. We are also going to be tossing in our annual Cucamonga California brome. Then we got some California fuchsia that we're topping in. This is a semi-woody perennial. And then we have showy penstemon, which is also a semi-woody perennial. And these are sort of like, these will live for like 10, 15 years, you know. So they're longer lived plants, but you know, the thing is, since we're going to be doing hydrostatic irrigation on these guys in a raised bed, they're not going to have as long of a lifespan. They will be at their best in the ground without receiving supplemental irrigation once established. That will ensure that they are the healthiest plants with the longest lifespan. Because if you grow them with irrigation, showy penstemon really doesn't like, you know, supplemental irrigation that much at all. But with hydrostatic, we'll see if it can handle it. Because hydrostatic supposedly is better for native plants than overhead watering, which is the Oyas. We'll talk about that too. Check out this centipede. This is from our leaf mold. This is what you want to see in your soil, folks. I didn't used to see this kind of centipede around here. They just showed up. Oh, there you go, little guy. Oh man, did I hurt you? I'm sorry. Yeah, these little bugs are fragile, so try not to handle them too much. So, let's see what else we got. No, this is black sage. I'm not doing that. These are some seeds that I went out and collected. Oh, shoot. I forgot. We also have the golden bush. This is an amazing native plant that you can use as an insectary. It's really good for that, and I collected these. It's really good for that because it is a fall and winter bloomer. And it is Asteraceae, sunflower family. And so Asteraceae, the sunflower family, is one of the best families for attracting beneficial insects to your garden. So the golden bush is an absolute powerhouse. So this is Isocoma menziesii, the native golden bush, the Menzies golden bush. So we're going to start getting these seeds in here. So I dumped the whole mix in. And if we have any extra, we'll use it elsewhere. So there go the wildflowers. We'll do the California grassland mix. So we definitely want to have some grasses. Always good to partner up with grasses as well. Include them in your mix. They are friends of wildflowers, and if we were doing this in the ground, we would definitely add some purple needlegrass or some nodding needlegrass. But since these are in the boxes, and the brome is a bit more adaptable to and a bit more tolerant, and I guess it's the needlegrasses are tolerant of summer irrigation, but the brome actually kind of likes it, and it will continue to grow through the summer. These are sharp seeds. Be careful. I cut myself on it. So yeah, the brome grass seeds, that is. So then we're going to add the golden bush. And the thing is, I'm going to add all these seeds because I've been getting low germination rates with these. And what we're going to do later on is we're going to thin these out. So we'll thin everything out as needed, because basically we are going to be doing the wildflowers in here, but we're also going to be establishing these perennials with the help of the wildflowers. And this is a cool technique that I use to help get native perennial plants established, and to help them develop into the healthiest plants they can be, is establish them with native wildflowers and grasses, because that's what they would be growing with after like a fire or another disturbance in an uncultivated setting. So we want to kind of like replicate and leverage succession in our garden, right? That's one of the principles that we use for our vegetables, and that's also a principle that we use for our native plants. So I'll throw in some California nettle. We're going to have to be a bit careful around this one, but I've been wanting to grow California nettles, since in addition to being a good insectary, it is an edible and medicinal plant. And this is our native variety of the stinging nettle. So Urtica dioica, right here. So we'll throw in some of those. I'm going to conserve these since I want to put them elsewhere as well, because these are my seeds. I brought them. Then we have the blue dicks. So I'll probably put about that much, accounting for lower germination rates on some of these. Then we have the California fuchsia, and this one I've been able to germinate successfully. So we don't need to put that many, because we only are going to want 1 or 2 of these per box. That and the showy penstemon, so I don't want to put that much. And the showy penstemon, which is one of the most beautiful native flowers. They look like snapdragons. So if you can imagine a snapdragon that gets like 4 to 6 feet tall, and so they're very pretty. And these ones were given to me by a friend. You know who you are, who lives down in the San Diego area, and these were collected from La Mesa, California. So this is what I happen to have. Alright, so there's that, and we have one last thing to add, which is our Cucamonga brome. I don't want to add too much because I want this mix to be a bit heavier on the wildflowers, but we'll add about that much. Alright, there's our mix. So now what we can do to help it get to spread is we can add some leaf mold to it to bulk it up. So give it a good mix, and this will help to homogenize it too. And so, of course, I've gone on and on about the benefits of leaf mold, and all that leaf mold is compost that you make from leaves that have fallen off of trees. And you cold compost it for a year. So you just put it in like a compost bin, keep it moist, and let it sit for a year. And it makes this amazing material that is rich in indigenous microorganisms. And indigenous microorganisms are the backbone of healthy soil. And this is a great way to propagate them with leaf mold. So we're going to keep adding some more leaf mold just to bulk this up. And see, now we have this mixture right here of leaf mold and native seeds. And so when it comes to native wildflowers, you do kind of want to sow them on the surface, but a little bit of coverage is generally okay. And a little bit of coverage, in my experience, can be a bit beneficial if we're sort of like having erratic rainfall patterns. And we will be irrigating these guys, so we don't really need to cover them up that much. But they can dry out like over the weekend if we get warm weather, and then they'll fail. So we want to make sure that they receive adequate moisture. And mixing them in with leaf mold can help with that, because leaf mold does retain lots of water, as well as being host to lots of beneficial indigenous microorganisms. So I'm going to get another one of these, and we're going to pour it between the two to help it mix. See, because it tends to like stick to the bottom, and like a bunch of our seeds will get stuck in there, so we don't want that to happen. So I've just scattered them as well. That works too. But you know, it may help a lot to bulk them up with leaf mold or whatever compost you have on hand. I would be careful about using a really rich compost with natives in general. They tend to prefer lower nutrient conditions because that's what they evolved with. You know, we have naturally we naturally have soils here with low nutrient availability. And that's just like we haven't, and so therefore an ecology has evolved that is adapted to those conditions, and you know, we want to, you know, replicate those conditions if we can. So we don't want to really fertilize. Well, you don't fertilize these after you plant them, so you just let them grow. Alrighty, so we have our mix. The other thing that we can do is we can lay down a little bit of mulch, and so we already made some. So we made some mulch. Out of the residues of plants that we had removed from these pollinator boxes, there was a bunch of non-native plants in here, and we just ran them through the chipper, and we have this mulch. And so that can be used to help cover the soil as well. Also, Nelly, can you grab me the leaf mold?
Yes.
Thanks. We can also cover it up with more leaf mold. So we've got our mix. And so we've already put the narrowleaf milkweed in here, as I said. This is the Asclepias fascicularis. Amazing plant. We already have some other stuff germinating too. I'm not sure what it all is. I mean, I can see there's a California poppy right there. But I'm not sure what all the rest of the stuff is. So we'll have to see. I know that there is some Phacelia that volunteers around the garden, so hopefully we'll see some Phacelia too. Phacelia is not contained in any of the mixes that we have here. So, and Phacelia is a very essential native wildflower that is not commonly included in store-bought mixes. You can get it from Nicholas Hummingbird though. Oh, this is actually part of the milkweed. So we're gonna go ahead and just like dust it, sprinkle it. Yeah, and so like the California fuchsia, the milkweed, and the penstemon are going to be the long-term species in here. And there are some grasses coming up. This is probably some brome grass. You know, like one of my goals here is to make native plants the weeds of this garden. So we want native plants coming, native annual plants and like short-lived perennials coming up everywhere, and we're just gonna let them do their thing. You know, cut them for green manure or mulch if we need to, as long as we allow them to go to seed. So, now we got this one. We'll do the rest in here. So now we have a nice homogenized mixture we can spread around. Try and cover all the spots. And you know, as the perennials establish in here, we'll thin out the annuals. That's what you do when you're doing successional management, is you'll sow everything together and then you'll thin as you need to. It's just like sowing carrots or sowing radishes and then thinning them later, except what you're doing is you're gradually thinning out the shorter lived plants to make way for the longer lived plants. Okay, so I'm going to rough it up a bit. We're going to get so we get a bit better coverage. Yeah, and then we have the Oyas right here. So this is what's called hydrostatic irrigation, and this is one of the oldest irrigation techniques in the world. You fill these clay jugs up with water, basically, and then the water will be transferred into the surrounding soil via basically as osmotic pressure. And it pretty much delivers it maintains ideal moisture levels within the soil for plant growth. In general, plant growth, I speak generally there. Obviously, this may not be the best technique to use with like succulents or cacti, but you know, we'll see how it works with native plants. I have a friend who grows native plants using hydrostatic irrigation, and they tell me that they've gotten great results with it. But that's mostly been longer-lived woody perennials like black sage, white sage, that kind of stuff. So we'll see how it works with the wildflowers. All right. So now that those are in, we're going to do a light sprinkling of leaf mold. This is just to give them a little bit of extra protection. So you can sow native wildflowers generally between as soon as the first rains arrive, all the way through January. I wouldn't sow them any time later than January, because then they won't be able to complete their flowering cycles properly, which you want them to do, because native wildflowers will go to seed and then they'll spread everywhere. So we can actually expect them to spread throughout this area of the garden from the pollinator boxes, which is honestly great, you know? So, because we want to have these native wildflowers coming up everywhere. And so let's talk about why plant native. So, first of all, this is one of the most important reasons, is for conservation purposes. Our native ecosystems here in California are under threat. They are, in many places, unfortunately, only a shadow of the beauty and abundance that they once were. And you know, we can maybe bring back a little piece of that in our gardens and provide habitat for the declining insect populations, because insect populations are declining at a rate of about 2.5% per year globally, and this is due pretty much entirely due to the use of pesticides and habitat loss, like ecological destruction. So this is one of the reasons why we don't use any pesticides here, is because pretty much all pesticides will damage the ecosystem. Save for like baits, we do use like baits for like slugs and ants, but that doesn't really hurt anything. Light mulch. So yeah, for like ecological restoration and conservation purposes, you want to plant native. Second of all, and this is another great reason for us as gardeners, is native plants, incorporating native plants into your garden is the #1 pest control strategy. The #1 pest control strategy. No pest control strategy is as effective as planting native plants around your garden. And here's why. Native plants host the broadest array of beneficial insects, the most diverse, they host the greatest diversity of beneficial insects. And they will bring in all of the insects that eat all of the pests from around the area. So thanks in large part to native plants, we don't need to spray pesticides here. It's totally unnecessary. So that all of the predators and parasitoids that the natives bring in are sufficient to keep aphids, to keep cabbage worms, to keep mealybugs, to keep even stuff that's harder to control, like stink bugs and leaf-footed bugs. They keep all of those what we call pests at bay, and manage their populations at a level to where they don't really cause any significant damage to our crops. And this might be a shock to some people, because everybody knows that gardens attract pests, or what we call pests. But the main reason for that, two main reasons, is one, your plants are not healthy enough. They are not receiving all the nutrition and the optimal growing conditions that they require, and this is preventing them from mounting an effective immune response, because plants do have immune systems like us. The other reason is lack of biodiversity, lack of those natural, biological, or regulatory mechanisms that come from having a balanced ecology. So we're almost done with this here. So by planting flowering native plants especially, you will provide a food source, habitat, shelter, and breeding habitat to beneficial insects. Because a lot of them are pollinators, actually. And they will feed especially on native plants. And a lot of these native wildflowers, what they'll do, they'll provide a massive, massive boom for these beneficial insects just as things are starting to dry out. And just as we're transitioning into the warm season, when the pest pressure tends to get a lot higher. So we basically have we'll basically have a head start on our biocontrols going into the summer, which is awesome. So yeah, just a light dusting. You really don't want to do much with this mulch and the leaf mold. I'm just trying to fill in the gaps now. And then we'll call it a day when it comes to this. All right, sweet. That's it. So now all we got to do is water. And it is going to rain tomorrow, so we are planting right before the rain. We don't even need to water right now, but why not? It'll help stimulate them a bit. And it's just a little bit of water. It'll help everything settle too. And watering a little bit before the rain will help prime the soil to receive that rainfall well. Because otherwise, if the rain is falling on dry soil, it's going to run off. And so I'll stop watering once it starts to like drain really well. Once we see it start to drain. And the Oyas will keep it moist. And there we have it. Native wildflowers. It's really as simple as that. These will be bursting with color starting in February and going all the way into summer. And once the golden bush is established and the fuchsia can pretty much, California fuchsia from what I've seen can pretty much bloom year round. And that is the best plant for attracting hummingbirds pretty much, by the way. The golden bush will bloom starting in August, September, going all the way until now. So the golden bush around here is sort of like just starting to finish up with its flowering cycle. And so yeah, these beds will basically provide, you know, a food source for our ecosystem, you know, year round. And that's really, you know, what the function of these pollinator boxes should be, to provide a food source to your ecology year round with native plants. And that's what we're doing. So, I think there's not much else here. Plant native, now's the time to do it. You could even sow in native wildflowers alongside vegetables. Your cool season vegetables, they will grow. They do for the most part okay on the same irrigation regime as many of your vegetables in the cool season. So plant them now while you have the chance. I think we'll call it. So if you guys have any questions, feel free to use the Ask a Master Gardener feature on our website. The reason why we did not talk about fruit tree pruning, I forgot to mention this. The reason why is because it's about to rain. And we don't want to prune trees right before the rain. That's asking for disease. So we'll do that next week, provided it's not raining. We're going to be managing a couple of the trees. We'll probably get to the jujube and some of the citrus and maybe the apple. The apple tree is kind of like not growing the way it should, so we'll work on it. All right. So thank you, everybody. I'll grab the phone. Yes, native plants. All right. Thank you, everybody, for joining us today. We will see you next week. Have a good one.